Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Read Step. And boy, oh boy, I'm excited to get into this one right here. We got two games we're going to talk about today. It's the divisional round. It's the Chiefs versus the Texans. It is the Commanders versus the Lions. It is Jared Goff versus the up-and-coming superstar rookie Jaden Daniels and the most hated man in America, Patrick Mahomes versus C.J. Stroud, one of the up-and-coming also superstars in the NFL. Also, by the way, both of them, CJ and Jaden Daniels, from the Inland Empire of California. But anyways, let's go ahead and get into this first game here. We got the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Houston Texans. And, right off the gate, I do want to say, even as somebody who is a big fan of Patrick Mahomes, I'll openly say it. I've tried to make it well known as I've started this channel. I am a fan of Patrick Mahomes, one of my favorite players in the league, as well as some other players as well. I'm a football fan, just like everybody else, just like anybody who is watching. I'm a football fan, huge football fan, and I will say there's going to be two controversial calls we're going to get to later, but I want to address them here first. Obviously, the Kansas City Chiefs, they go out. By the way, they win 23-14. They're moving on to their, I think, their sixth or seventh straight AFC Championship game. By the way, repping modern day St. John Bosco high school football back home in Southern California. Like I said, going to be getting into that later this year when high school football comes back in Southern California. But anyways, getting back to it, I will say, despite the fact that I am I'm not a Chiefs fan, but the fact that I am a Patrick Mahomes fan, I love his game. He's one of the great players. Probably might end up being arguably the new GOAT, or might replace Brady as the GOAT, but he's in the conversation. So I feel lucky as a fan of the game to be able to witness history and witness him and the Chiefs, do their thing. However, I will say, a lot of people hate the Chiefs right now. They've been hating the Chiefs for the past few years, which is kind of funny to me at the same time because, 6 years ago when they were playing Tom Brady and the Patriots, everybody was rooting for the Chiefs to go out and beat Tom Brady and the Patriots because they were just so sick and tired of them, obviously. And now it's just transitioned over to the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. When you're on the top, you become the most hated person in the world, and that's exactly where they are. But even with that, I will say those two calls against on the Texans defense that were due to plays that were made on him, I thought were really questionable, and I thought the commentary team purposely tried to make that well known, as they should have. I'm glad they did. I'm glad Joe Buck did. I'm glad that Troy Aikman did as well, because I think it's important, because some of those calls, I gotta keep it a buck. Like, those are some bullshit calls, and I just got like, when I saw, I was like, how is that a flag? Like, I didn't understand. I didn't think the one on Will Anderson was a flag. Maybe now real time speed, when you first see it, yes, it does kind of look like maybe some head-to-head contact there. The sound of it matters, believe it or not. At least to the refs, it matters. The one on the other back, the linebacker, Tutu, I believe is his last name. I'm sorry if I totally mispronounced. I'm so sorry about that. But I didn't think that one warranted a flag at all. If anything, he went helmet to helmet with his own teammate. He didn't even hit Patrick Mahomes. But whatever. That's just at the end of the day, whether the NFL admits it or not, and they're never going to admit it. Let's call it what it is. Patrick Mahomes is their moneymaker. The Chiefs are their moneymaker. That's their breadwinner. Just like Tom Brady was for the NFL for many, many years, and just like the Chicago Bulls were for the NBA for many, many years. Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs are going to get a lot of calls, and I don't think it's a conspiracy theory. I don't think it's anything out of the ordinary to say that or assume that, I want to go as far as to say that the Chiefs pay the refs. I know a lot of people like to joke about it. There's so many jokes about it. But that is a real thing. It is a real thing. And if you deny it, then you're either a Chiefs fan or you're just delusional. But with that being said, those two penalties, I don't believe, are the reason why the Chiefs won. I think the Chiefs won because at the end of the day, they made some great plays. They made a hell of good, really, really good plays. Patrick Mahomes had that touchdown to Kelsey as he was literally falling down. You had Kelsey, by the way, for the second straight year where he has had like a shitty season, and then he comes into the playoffs and does absolutely as an unbelievable job leading receiving, and just goes back to the old Kelsey that he was many, many years ago. So I don't know what it is. Maybe it's kind of like playoff Rondo, playoff Kike Hernandez for my Dodger fans back home. But yeah, the Kansas City Chiefs won this game. Besides the penalties, those were some bullshit calls. But besides the penalties, the Kansas City Chiefs deservingly so won this game. They just made the bigger plays when they needed to. Patrick Mahomes did what he does best. Um, and the defense, holy moly, the defense. We're going to get into that in a little bit. But starting off with the Texans, though, you got C.J. Stroud, 245 yards passing, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Joe Mixon, he had 18 carries for 88 yards and a touchdown. Nico Collins did his thing, 5 catches, 81 yards. But nope, there was no receiving touchdown at all for the Texans. You had a rushing touchdown. And I'm checking right here. Where did the other touchdown come from? When we were here forgetting. Plus, it was really hard for me to watch the game a little bit because having some technical difficulties here at home. I know the other one came from field goals. So the Texans, as far as the Texans, look, they're still a young team. They're still an up and coming team. They have their other two best receivers that are hurt. Unfortunately, Stephon Diggs. We'll see if he comes back, wants to re-sign. Tank Dell is most likely going to miss maybe all of next year. Who knows? It's unfortunate. Once again, it's an unfortunate injury that he suffered late in the year this past season, right before the playoffs started. He's had an unfortunate start to his career. Obviously, he had his broken leg last year, and now he had basically a broken leg, but more of his knee this year. So hopefully he comes back, and when he does, he's always going to be a good weapon for C.J. Stroud. Just an unfortunate start to his career, but I thought some of the miscues for the Texans that led them to losing this game was special teams. You got the blocked field goal, and then you had the missed PAT. Missed PATs, if there's anybody that knows about missed PATs against the Chiefs, it's going to be the San Francisco 49ers. Look at last year in the Super Bowl. That one point that they missed was a pretty crucial into the Chiefs going on and winning that game. You cannot afford to have a bad game on special teams the way they did, and also having a field goal blocked. Along with that, you just can't afford it to have and then to start off the game or the second half, the Chiefs they had a big return for a big kick return. So when you play against the Kansas City Chiefs, I don't care if whoever they have on their team, they could have Tyreek Hill or they could have Xavier Worthy or DeAndre Hopkins, whoever it may be. You cannot afford, just like the Patriots, you cannot afford to have any missteps whatsoever against Kansas City, especially a team that's coached by Andy Reid. At the quarterback position, you have Patrick Mahomes, the greatest quarterback of this generation so far, still in his prime, and gonna be in his prime for a very, very long time, especially with the rules and bullshit calls. You can't afford to lack on any level of the playing field whatsoever, and not on offense, not on defense, and not on special teams. You cannot underestimate that special teams. Or you can't underestimate special teams play, period, because you're going to get what you get here. They won, yes, by 9 points, which is, I think that's a pretty decent, it's a pretty fair score right there between the two. The Texans still had a chance to come back and tie this game up at some point. They had a chance to go and really I wouldn't say take the game over, because it was a little. It was really back and forth. In the first half, it was a lot of field goals and like one touchdown maybe. But the Texans, they fought. They still played well. Don't get me wrong. They still played very well. I thought that C.J. Stroud made some good throws. Nico Collins made some plays when he needed to. But at the end of the day, when you have those mishaps on special teams like that, and you're already missing some of your key players, like I said, and on top of that, while yes, I don't believe that some of those calls that we keep talking about were detrimental to the Chiefs winning, in my opinion. I mean, they still, at the end of the day, it's still, it gives the Chiefs extra yards and extra possessions to go on to play. So I guess you could make the argument that yes, it did, but let's not let that distract us from the fact that the Texans special teams today, as opposed to last week in the wild card round, just it wasn't there for them, and it cost them. Now moving on to Kansas City, you had Patrick Mahomes, 177 yards, 1 touchdown, pretty much the same thing that he's had all year long. He's ever since Tyreek Hill left, he's not going to have those 50+ touchdown years with 5,000 passing yards. He's not going to have a whole lot of 250 plus passing yard games, or even 200 yards. It's more along the lines of what he looks like he does for the most part. And I would know because I've had him on my fantasy team the past 2 years, and this is pretty much what he puts up right here: 177 yards, like I said, and a touchdown, 98 passer rating, and a QBR of 66. You had Kareem Hunt, 44 yards on 8 carries and a touchdown. Travis Kelce, like we said, Travis Kelce was out here making plays like he was Travis Kelce of 2019. He was out here 7 catches, 117 yards, and a touchdown. If he continues to play like this, the Chiefs are going to be really hard to stop because you still have Xavier Worthy, you still have Kareem Hunt, like I said, DeAndre Hopkins, who didn't even have a catch today. You still have Juju Smith-Schuster, Hollywood Brown. These guys still have weapons, and they're utilizing Noah Gray more than they ever have before in this offense that I've seen. And while a lot of these guys didn't get the ball or get any catches or got minimal targets, don't let that fool you because they will get targets in the next game. And if they do win the next game, they'll probably. You just never know with the Chiefs. The thing about the Chiefs is kind of similar to the Bills. When the Chiefs had Tyreek Hill and they had peak Travis Kelce, those two guys were obviously, they were really the number 1 and number 2 guys, but they were both 1-1. Those are the guys that Patrick Mahomes got the ball to every single week, every single day, and those guys did make plays. Tyreek Hill takes the top off any defense. Takes the top off any defense that he plays against, whether he's in a Chiefs uniform or he's in a Dolphins uniform. Although some people could make the argument that not so much in a Dolphins uniform, but Travis Kelce, kind of like I said earlier, also he's the second year where he hasn't really had a great year overall, regular season wise, and he comes in here with 7 catches, 117 yards, and a touchdown. He also broke a tackle or two on one play where he just took off, almost scored actually if it wasn't for that tackle by one of the safeties for the Texans literally right before he scored. Travis Kelce, I don't know what it is, but it seems like whenever it's postseason time and it's time to make that run, it just something switches. And I think Patrick Mahomes knows it too, and that's what he does. And he's going to go and he's always going to find Kelce, and he's going to go and try to find others here and there. But Kelce goes back to being his security blanket, and rightfully so. Travis Kelce is Travis Kelce, first ballot Hall of Famer. He is arguably the greatest tight end of all time. I still have Rob Gronkowski as the number 1 all time, but Travis Kelce is arguably the number 1 tight end of all time, especially if they go on to win another Super Bowl. I don't know what else to say. Travis Kelce just freaking turns into playoff Rondo. Kind of like when the Lakers had Rondo, just playoff Rondo. He just comes in and just does a really great job at. I don't know, man. I don't know how else to say it. It's just something about Travis in the playoffs now where he just saves everything from the regular season. He just saves it for the postseason, and he goes back, reverts back to Travis Kelce of old, and you got that Patrick Mahomes to Travis Kelce connection, and it's deadly and it's dangerous. And when they're in that mode, they're pretty much unstoppable. Going on to the defense, I want to go to the defense today had a total of 8 sacks. George Karlaftis went off. Especially in that second half. George Karlaftis had 3 sacks, mind you. I'm pretty sure they all came in the second half. I could be wrong, but George Karlaftis had 3 sacks. You had 1 sack by Jamari Connor. You had another sack by Charles Omenihu. Sorry about that. I was butchering the name. Chris Jones had a sack. Felix, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that. Number 97 for the Chiefs. For all my Chiefs fans out there, you guys know who he is. He got a sack. A sack by Wharton. And the thing about these sacks too, a lot of them came at such clutch times. Some of them even came back to back. Really came at clutch times, whether it be to drive the Texans back behind the middle of the field, or when they were in the red zone, kind of stopping them from scoring any more touchdowns. This Chiefs defense, for whatever reason, just always seems to come alive even more than they do in the regular season when it comes to postseason time. I think that's the reason why Steve Spagnuolo is a Hall of Fame defensive coordinator. He won 2 with the Giants, both against Tom Brady, and he's now won 3 with the Kansas City Chiefs. So if I stand correct, he's a 5-time Super Bowl champion. Let me just double check that, Steve Spagnola rings. Oh, I'm sorry. He has four. He has four Super Bowl rings as the defensive coordinator. Um, yeah, he won two. Okay, yeah. So he has four total. So he's if they win again, and a large part of that would have to be from their defense to step up, kind of like they did last year. I mean, it just cements him even more as a Hall of Fame defensive coordinator. I wouldn't go as far as saying he was like a Dick LeBeau type because I mean, Dick LeBeau has a special place in my heart forever as a Steelers defensive coordinator, one of the greatest D coordinators of all time. Um, but no, Spagnola definitely deserves his respect along with his players. L'Jarius Sneed was a huge loss for them, but they still seem to figure it out. They're 15-2 on the season. They just won their divisional round at home, and they're going to be playing either the Ravens or the Bills next week in the AFC Championship game. So all in all, pretty good game to start it off. Start off divisional round. I think it's a team. I think it was a game where again everybody's going to have eyes on the Kansas City Chiefs. Some people want to. Some people again. A lot of that is because of the hate for the Chiefs and the hate for Patrick Mahomes. People are going to want to see who's going to beat the Chiefs, who is going to beat Patrick Mahomes, and who are they going to start glazing before. Because, again, Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs just 5-6 years ago were on the cusp of beating Tom Brady and the Patriots. Everybody was so happy. Everybody was excited because everybody was looking forward to seeing Patrick Mahomes be the one because they knew he was going to be the one. Didn't turn out that way, but they knew he was going to be the one to ascend into the next top guy, and they were really hoping to beat Tom Brady and the Patriots, just like everybody did every single year. Now they go 5-6 years later, and the roles have completely flipped. Everybody hates Patrick Mahomes. Everybody hates the Kansas City Chiefs, but you know what? It makes for great storytelling, and it makes for great cinema, and it makes for great sports because the moment somebody beats the Kansas City Chiefs, whether it be next week or in the Super Bowl, it's got a nice little ring to it. No pun intended, by the way. Or if the Kansas City Chiefs make history and let's just say they go on to three-peat, then they're going to have the biggest target on their back in NFL history, maybe sports history. You can make the argument that the Yankees probably had the biggest, at some point, biggest target on their back a long, long time ago, obviously. But quite a game to start like I said, start the divisional round. I thought both teams played very well. The offense of the Texans, I thought, played particularly well, including the defense as well. Again, just a couple bullshit calls, in my opinion, and this coming from a Patrick Mahomes fan. But overall, I think the Texans have a lot to be excited about, much like they did last year. You still got C.J. Stroud. You got Nico Collins, who's a number one receiver. You can go out and get somebody else this year. Or you can bring Stephon Diggs back, maybe on a 2-year deal, maybe a 1-year deal again, but a 2, maybe 3-year deal. Probably go get somebody else. Tank Dell's probably going to miss a lot, if not the whole entire year next year for the Texans. So, but apart from that, the Texans, again, their ceiling is very, very high. They're going to continue to get better. They're going to continue to elevate, and we'll see where they go from there. Chiefs, they're going to go on to the AFC Championship game where they will host, and it will be either against the Buffalo Bills or the Baltimore Ravens, and you all know, regardless of who they play, that is going to be one hell of a game to watch. So I can't wait, but especially if it's the Bills. And we all know why. Moving on to the next team, though, we got the Commanders and the Lions, and I'm not going to lie. Obviously, if you saw my last video, the Commanders I had picked to lose. I thought that the train was going to stop with the Lions, and boy, oh boy, was I wrong. Let me tell you something right now. I would like to officially announce, because this is true whether you believe it or not, Jaden Daniels has officially had the greatest year of a rookie quarterback in NFL history. And the crazy part about it is he, along with this team, have a real opportunity and a real chance to beat either the Eagles or the LA Rams. So let's just get into it. But before we get into it, I want to go ahead. Let's look up Jaden Daniels' numbers really quick. I want to run through them really quick one more time for anybody that hadn't paid attention or didn't know. 3,500 passing yards, 25 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 70.5 QBR, fourth in the NFL. So under 10 interceptions, 25 touchdowns, almost 3,600 yards, and you lead your team to not one but 2 playoff wins, including an appearance in the NFC title game. That in itself, right there, is absolutely just bonkers. And man, what a game it was. We're gonna get into the rest of it soon. I just want to go through the numbers. So Jaden Daniels, 22 of 31, 300 yards basically, 299 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, QBR of 91, a rating of 122.9, so 123. You got Brian Robinson Jr. did his thing with 15 carries, 77 yards, 2 touchdowns. Jaden also ran for over 50 yards with 51 on 16 carries. Jeremy McNichols, 4 carries, 8 yards, and a touchdown. Damani Brown, the other guy that Amon-Ra St. Brown was talking about, where he remembers him being drafted ahead of him. He led in receiving with 6 catches, 98 yards, no touchdowns. But Scary Terry had a big play, he had a really big play today on a screen pass, split 2 defenders, and basically took it to the house. He had 4 catches, 87 yards, and a touchdown. Zach Ertz also, he had 28 yards, but it seemed like he did make some pretty clutch plays, and one of those was a touchdown. And the defense, holy moly, the defense came up with 4 interceptions, by the way, for anybody who didn't watch or didn't get a chance to watch it. The defense went ahead and had 4 picks. Absolutely great game by the defense of the Commanders. I mean, this is, we're talking about Dan Quinn-led defense, even though he is the head coach. He had one of the best, if not the best defense in the NFL when he was at Dallas before he came and took this job. And it was on display today. 4 interceptions, one of them coming from Jameson Williams on a trick play, and the other 3 by Jared Goff. We're going to go and just get into the lines numbers. Right now, Jared Goff, 23 of 40, 313 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions, 41 QBR, 59 passer rating. He just had a bad game overall. I mean, let's call it what it is. He had a bad game, and there's really, I mean, whether people admit it or not, it's kind of like we talked about with Sam Darnold, actually. Sam Darnold last week, we were talking about sorry, I keep fixing my shirt, by the way. This thing is like weighing it down, and I feel like it's just pulling it too much. It looks weird. Similarly to where we were talking about with Sam Darnold last week, Sam Darnold led his team to a 14-3 season, the best season of his career thus far. And he just had a really bad last 2 weeks, and one of them was a playoff game. And this week, Jared Goff, at one point for about a month stretch, was an MVP candidate. At one point, even like the front runner. One of his better years for sure. In fact, let's look at Jared Goff's numbers since we did with Jaden Daniels. Jared Goff, he had 4,600 yards, 37 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, 68.5 QBR. So he had a great year. He really did. 37 touchdowns is nothing to scoff at, nor is 4,600 yards. But today just wasn't his day, clearly. I think the Commanders' defense were just getting after him and just quite honestly just making plays. Some of the passes might have been a little bit overthrown. The Jameson Williamson interception, I think there's a time and place when it comes to trick plays, and I just feel like when you're down and you're trying to get back a lead and get a comfortable lead, trick plays, it's easier for me to say, especially it's easy to say now that they lost, but the Lions do run a lot of trick plays, and a lot of times it does work, but it just, that play was just all bad from the jump. Didn't really seem like it was getting towards Jahmyr Gibbs. It just kind of went straight to the DB. But I do think the brunt of this game, as far as blame-wise, definitely has to go to Jared Goff. Did not have a great game at all, other than 313 yards, but did not have a great game whatsoever. 3 interceptions. I don't really know where they go from here. They're still a great team. They did have a lot of key injuries, especially on the defensive side of the ball. But this was just a horrific game. But it was a great game for people like any fans to see. People like me, people like obviously Commanders fans for sure. The first time that they're seeing their team go to the NFC Championship game. If you're around my age, and if you're up there in age, and it's the first time in a very long time they're going back to the NFC title game. So I think the Lions just need to get healthy. They need to bring back a lot of their defensive players, like Hutchinson, for example, leading the league in sacks when he did get hurt. And I think if they have that going for them, their offense is great. Their offense, don't get me wrong. The offense, you got Amon-Ra St. Brown, one of the top 3 receivers in the league. Jahmyr Gibbs, one of the top 3 running backs in the league, in my opinion. Top 3 backs, at least maybe going into next year, will be a top 3 guy. Jameson Williams finally broke out. He had a little bit of a slow start to his career out of Alabama, but he came out and did this thing. Sam Laporta also had a big play today, and fighting back to try to continue to close the gap in this game. Offensive line is a really good offensive line. They can build on that for sure. And defensively, like I said, they have a really good defense, one of the top defenses, but a lot of the injuries added up. And, well, they did definitely, I mean, I can't even say that they did and they did not hold the Commanders because, I mean, while it was 45 points that the Commanders put up, one of those was a pick six. And when your quarterback is throwing 3 interceptions, you know, they're going to score pretty quickly. So I think the Lions still have not just one of the best defenses, but one of the best teams in the entire NFL. So, you know, it's a tough pill to swallow when you don't really know, like, when you don't really have a weak link on your team. It's kind of it's really hard to take when you do take these losses like this, which is why I know I saw the post game interview with Dan Campbell, who is known for getting quite emotional a lot of times, and he was pretty upset about the game afterwards. But at the end of the day, again, as a coach, as a team, and as Jared Goff, I'm sure he probably has. It's unfortunate, but it was on him. It was on him. 3 interceptions is 3 interceptions. One of them is a pick six. And that's all the Commanders needed. So shout out to the Commanders. I'll give you guys the rest of the stats. Amon-Ra showed up and showed out. 8 catches, 137 yards, no touchdowns. Sam Laporta had that 1 touchdown, over 50 yards. Jahmyr Gibbs led on the ground with 105 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was basically the player of the game. He also led second in receiving with 70 yards and 6 catches. Not to mention, Jared Goff also fumbled the ball and lost that fumble recovery. So overall, I mean, this game, as far as from a Detroit standpoint, was on Jared Goff, unfortunately. And I thought this was going to be the year for the Detroit Lions. Last year should have been. Last year when they went, how they lost to the San Francisco 49ers, I still have no idea when they were up by a wide margin in that game and they just blew it, quite honestly. This year, I thought, okay, last year you put that behind you. You're the number 1 seed. You're 15-2. You're coming into this divisional round at home. You're going to host the playoffs to get to the Super Bowl this time. They should beat the Commanders with the rookie quarterback in Jaden Daniels. And you should go out and beat either the Eagles or the Rams in a tough game regardless to get to eventually the Super Bowl finally and play either the Chiefs, the Ravens, or the Buffalo Bills. And this one has to hurt more than last year. I'm sorry, but it does. Like, I get last year you were there and you had it, but this is just like such a shock and such a, I mean, such a shock to the organization, the fan base. I'm pretty sure you did all that, 15-2. You're the number 1 seed. You're hosting the playoffs, and you go out and you have nothing to show for it. Couldn't even tell. 0-1 in the playoffs this year. So, but no, going back to the Commanders though. Shout out to Jaden Daniels. Shout out to the Washington Commanders, all my Commanders fans out there. You guys deserve to celebrate. This is an exciting time for the Commanders football squad. You got a pretty good defense out there. Hell of an offense, mainly led by Jaden Daniels, a great quarterback. I can say that. Great quarterback, especially in his rookie year. You don't see or hear about too many rookie quarterbacks going in their first year ever in the NFL, leading their team to a minimum of a championship game, with a real opportunity to win and go to the Super Bowl. That would be absolutely insane. So shout out to the Commanders, and you know, we'll see what happens there. I'm going to do another video tomorrow for the rest of the divisional round. But with that being said, we're going to leave it right here. Like I said, we're going to continue on tomorrow. So thank you guys again for tuning in. For anybody who does tune in or has tuned in, make sure you leave a like and comment, and also subscribe. We have no subscribers, so if you guys could leave a subscription and subscribe, I really appreciate it. We're going to continue to build this channel, like I always say, continue to build a community, and we're just kind of we'll go from here. So thank you guys again for tuning in. This is the Read Step. I am your host, Isaiah Ruiz, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace out.